guys, welcome back to Cakes by You. Today we're making this cute beach design with a sandpiper with a focus on the buttercream wave tutorial. For this technique you're going to need a palette knife or frosting spatula, a piping bag with a small round tip, maybe a 3 or a 5 size, and the secret weapon is this fan brush. This will help the whole design come together. So let's get to it. So for this next part, I need some crushed up graham crackers. You can find them crushed in the store or crush them yourself. Moving on to the sides, you could maybe pour them in a tray and roll your cake in it like some people do with sprinkles, but for now, I am just gonna do it the old-fashioned way with my hands. For this 6-inch cake, I use about 3/4 of one sleeve of graham crackers. So we're about to mix our colors for our wave design. We're going to need 3 different shades of blue, and we're going to need to reserve about this much white buttercream. So I'll do like 2 drops here, oops, 1 drop here, and I'm going to hold off adding any to our last color because likely to adjust that color we're going to just add a bit of either of these colors once they're mixed. Now I'm going to add 1 drop of teal. That was kind of a big drop, and we're going to see how that does us first. There we go. Nice, bold, ocean teal color. Now let's move on. We'll add a dab of this to this color since this already has the blue in it and see what our mid-tone looks like. That's also looking good. You want to just sort of hold them side by side to be sure that they are 2 different enough colors. I might darken this one just slightly so we can really see on camera the difference between these 3 tones. So I've adjusted my lighting so you can really see the difference in these colors. Now that I have my dark tone, mid-tone, I'm gonna add just a dab of my mid-tone to my lightest tone and mix it in as well. All right, now we have 3 distinct ocean colors. So we have our cake and we're gonna start with our darkest color. The best things about this design is you don't have to worry about getting your cake to be smooth. At the base of our cake, start with the darkest color, and we're gonna get lighter as it moves towards the shore, aka the top of the cake. We'll make a band at the bottom, and don't be afraid to lay it on thick because then you can get more texture in this design. Now, we're gonna move to our mid-tone and add that starting about halfway up the cake, I suppose. And now I'm just going to gently sort of mix the 2. You don't need to mix them totally, but just start at the base and kind of pull upwards a little bit so that the 2 colors are sort of blended now. Now at the top of the cake, we're going to add our lightest color. So the shape of your surf, you can do whatever. You could have it coming straight across the cake. I like to give mine maybe a little bit of a curve, but after you try this technique out, you can kind of decide how you'd like to do it and what you think looks best. Leave a decent amount of thickness on the edge. That's where we're going to pile a little extra white frosting after we get all of our waves in place. For this next part, we need to imagine where we want the crests of each of our waves to go. Maybe I'll have one coming in here. Maybe I'll stagger another one here. Since this is a smaller cake, I think that'll be good. We'll just add one here, one here, one here, and then the top. So we're gonna start at the top and work our way down. So here's our lightest color, and then on my spatula I have our middle color. I'm just gonna add a bit more here, and then pull it towards the front. Leave all the texture in there. You don't want to smooth this out too much. And having some of these divots kind of going in the same direction creates the illusion that the water is moving this way. Now taking just a dab of our darkest color, I'm going to go and add a little bit of this at the base of this wave. Keeping in mind that the crest of this wave is going to come over the top, and that's going to add some nice contrast, making this look like a deeper color. A touch of our lighter frosting up here just to really bring it out. Taking some of my lightest color here, dabbing it in and dragging it down. maybe have it angled this way a little bit. There we go, lots of texture. Move on to the base. Do the same thing. Pile up a little bit of frosting on the tip of your spatula like so. And just cut it in. Make it nice and fluffy if you like. There we go. And I'm gonna have it kind of curve down right here. Now that I see how the sides are going, I'm gonna build up this wave just a little more so it looks like it's really splashing up the side of the cake with my lightest color. All right, there you go. All right, this next part, you need a fan brush. Now at the base of each light colored strip that we added, I'm going to place my fan brush and then pull back downwards so that I drag a little bit of the light color over the dark and it creates more texture. And with this, knowing when to stop is important because you want to add texture, but you don't want to keep going over it so many times that you blend the colors together and you don't have any variation, you know. So I'll add a little bit of lighter color here. There we go. And then again at the base of the light color, press in and then pull back downwards. So because water is such an organic shape and thing to try to imitate, everybody's cake's going to look a little bit different. And even between cakes that I've made myself with this technique, there's a lot of variety. From this one to the one that I created in my shorts, even though I'm using the same technique, they look and turn out very different. Now at the top of each wave, I have a little bit of white frosting in this piping bag with a round tip. This is a tip number 5. With this, we just want to add like a highlight at the tip of each section of our lightest color frosting, like that. And then we'll go in with a fan brush and kind of do the same thing where we pull it back a little bit. I think the main thing that drives this design home is maintaining some variety between the different shades of blue. Like, you don't want to mix everything to where it becomes too homogeneous, but other than that, there's not too many hard and fast rules about this one. So now I swap to a size 3 round tip, and I'm going to do the same, just adding a little highlight here. You don't want it to look too regular or consistent. And when you're brushing, just use super light pressure. You don't really have to dig into your frosting to get it to work with you. Now, it's our final wave. Trying to give it a lot of motion. You don't want it to look too regular. There you go, spray, then maybe a gap here, and then a little more right there. Squished a little onto the brush. Oh, maybe a little too much, we'll see. Like that. And then I'm gonna press and pull backwards. Ready? Like so. Okay, so now I'll clean up this edge here and maybe add a little extra graham cracker sand now that I know where everything is going. And the good thing about this design is, you know, you have half of the cake for frosting lovers and, you know, people who scrape their frosting off their slices. Other half's for them. So for the body, you could use a piece of Rice Krispie. I'm just using this hardened piece of fondant for the base of his body. You could use modeling chocolate or whatever. To get your fondant to harden, you can add Tylus powder or Gum-Tex, or sometimes it's called CMC powder, I think. This will just give your fondant more elasticity and it helps it dry more quickly. So if you're making little creatures, this is the thing to add to your fondant to make it act more like gum paste. I think because their heads aren't so distinct from their body, I'm just gonna make it all in one piece. And since this is a 6-inch cake, we're not gonna make him very big. He's gonna be about the size of a peep, like a marshmallow peep. so there's not a lot to it, honestly. Most of the details for this little guy is going to come from the painting that we do later. I have it here, so I'm pulling one side out a little bit and pinching it to make a little tail shape, and then flattening it down, pressing this so it looks somewhat symmetrical. And then I'm gonna move with my finger, just kind of roll here, so there's like a slight indentation for a neck, but it's not going to be totally distinct. Smooth out the head, and that's about it. That's all we're gonna do, really. So for his legs, we're going to use skewers, and then they're a bit longer than they need to be so that they can be inserted into the cake and hold him up. I've taken my stylus powder and mixed it with a little bit of water, so it's made like a food glue. And then I'm going to press them into his body. I want his feet to be one at an angle, so I'll press one right here. And then I'm gonna angle this one backwards so it looks like he's running. Before I set him up to dry, I'm gonna poke 2 holes for his eyes and make an indentation for his beak. Now for a little bit to dry, find something to prop him up where the legs have time to dry before they're supporting the weight. So I'm just gonna place it right here on this little silicone thing, and we'll leave him alone for a few hours. Okay, so we have our little sand chick, and we're going to add his eyes, paint some feather details, and give him a nice pointy beak. And I have silver and then just a touch of black. Now that I have like a dark edge on his tail, I'm gonna mix in more silver. I'll make the darkest feathers at the tip of his tail and then make them lighter as they move towards his head. And dab off a little bit of the paint so your brush is just barely saturated. Now, turning the brush sideways, I'm gonna add some of his little head feathers. And then I'm just gonna add a couple speckles by his eye. So I'm taking a dab of my food glue, brushing the little holes that I made earlier. Then I'll press a little eye in here. Bam, just like that. Cute. Easy peasy, a little crooked, no worries. So I just rolled a little cone shape, and I'll press that in as well. And there we go. So now that we have our chick, time to place him in the cake. I may have made his legs a little long, but that's okay. So I'll insert this one first, and then tilt this one back here, and just make sure he's sturdy. He's so cute. Okay, now I'm going to paint his little leggies gray. Brush it on, just so it matches. And to disguise the skewer. There we go, easy peasy, ocean breezy. And then we're actually just going to build his foot right around his leg, directly on the cake. Smidgen of food glue at the base of each leg. Can roll out some little fondant toes, move them into a V shape, and press them on the base. And now that we put the V shape, we're gonna attach a 3rd toe and call it a day. Just a little fondant nubbin. Okay. Oh, keep punching him in the side. Poor guy. Okay. And then for a finishing touch, if you like, come back in with a round tip. And at the crest of the waves, you can add a little couple dots here and there for some seafoam spray or bubbles or whatever you like. Thank you so much for watching, and if you like this style of video, let me know what other kinds of cake tutorials that you would like to see in the comments below. But until then, stay tuned for some cute cake designs and happy decorating.